When a child is diagnosed with an illness, they're thrust into an adult world of doctor's appointments, blood tests, x-rays, and injections. At the same time, parents see their lives change forever as they face the practical and emotional consequence of a life-changing diagnosis. How can we help kids deal with their new realities, and how can we as parents make the best of the situation? Today we're talking all about how to face a serious diagnosis, and this is Parent Savers, episode 65.
Faster than a speeding toddler.
Sit still for just a minute.
Can soothe boo-boos with a gentle kiss.
Would you get down from there?
Able to clean poopy bottoms in a single swipe.
Oh, what did you eat?
Turning frazzled mommies and daddies into procreators of peace and harmony.
Ah, quit touching me.
It's Parent Savers, empowering new parents everywhere.
Welcome back, everybody, to Parent Savers, broadcasting as usual from the lovely Birth Education Center of San Diego. Parent Savers, as you know, is your weekly on-the-go support group for parents of newborns, infants, and toddlers. I'm your host, John O'Reilly. Thanks again for listening, and thanks to all of our loyal listeners who have joined the Parent Savers Club. For the Parent Savers Club, you can get all of our archived episodes, bonus content after each new show, plus special giveaways and discounts. Everyone can also subscribe to our free monthly Parent Savers newsletter for a chance to win membership to our club each month. And another way for you all to stay connected, as you know, is to download our free Parent Savers app, available in the Android and iTunes marketplace, or you can just stay connected with us on Facebook and Twitter. And not only will you know when new episodes come out, we engage in some different topics throughout the week, and we also offer you a chance to interact with the shows via producer Aaron in studio using our Facebook page or our Twitter handle, so as we're recording the shows live, you can ask questions of our experts as well. Today we're joined in studio by a group of parent panelists to discuss our topic on how to face a serious diagnosis, so let's go around the room and let everyone know who is here.
I'm Scott Killian. I'm 36 years old. I'm a certified financial planner. I've got one boy, Alex. He's 3.
I'm Molly Riffle. I'm 32. I'm a teacher / stay-at-home mom, and I have 2 little girls, Abigail, who's 2.5, and Riley, who's 3 months.
And I'm your host, Jonna, and we have 3 boys, 6, 4, and 2 years old. How about you, Dr. DeLand?
I have 2 children. I have a daughter who's 25, and she's a fourth-year medical student. And my son is 21, and he's a fourth-year history major at Vanderbilt.
Nice. That's great. Welcome to the show, and thanks, everyone, for joining us. Here's a question from Melissa. Melissa wrote us and said, I just had my daughter 4 days ago, and I'm already feeling depressed, and it's not baby blues. It's way worse. I had this happen with my last pregnancy, and I didn't do anything about it, mostly because I didn't want to take something to make me feel normal. It feels way worse this time, and I'm better at talking about it with my husband, but is this something I should bring up with my OB at my 6-week appointment? Any recommendations on how to not feel like this?
Hi, this is Yvonne Rothermel, licensed clinical social worker. Hi, Melissa. I'm so glad you wrote in and you're seeking support this time around. I'm also glad you're talking about how you are feeling with your husband. It is so important to let trusted others know how you are really doing. It is important for you to know that you do not have to suffer through this time around. There are very effective treatments for postpartum depression. Depending on the severity of your symptoms, medications may be recommended, but medications are not the only treatments for postpartum depression. It's also important for you to know that you are not alone. Many women experience postpartum depression. This is not your fault. It's not some weakness in you that you get this and others do not. If you're having depressive symptoms, I would not wait to your 6-week appointment with your OBGYN. I would call your doctor right away and let him or her know you're feeling depressed. It's important not to wait to seek help because we know that the sooner women seek treatment and support, the better outcomes for both mom and baby. I would also contact Postpartum Support International to find referrals to therapists and psychiatrists in your area that specialize in postpartum depression. It is important that you get a full assessment from a mental health professional specializing in this area. That way you ensure a proper treatment plan. You can find them on the web at www.postpartum.net. I would also recommend the blog Postpartum Progress at postpartumprogress.com. It is one of the most widely read best blogs on postpartum mood disorders, and it works to empower women in their recovery. You had asked for recommendations to feel better. Beyond the assessment, which we talked about, I would work to reduce your expectations of yourself right now. Your health is more important than a clean house or dirty laundry. Optimize your time with support of others. Allow others to do for you. Ask for help from your partner so you can take breaks and get sleep. So many women have such a difficult time asking for help, but it is necessary. Try to get out of the house and take walks when you can. Find a support group through Postpartum Support International to reduce your risk of isolation. Most of all, be gentle with yourself and know that women do recover from postpartum depression and feel better. I'm glad you wrote in.
Today's topic is how to face a serious diagnosis. Dr. DeLand is a radiation oncologist and an author, and she's going to help tell us about ways to help families and kids who are facing a serious diagnosis. So, Dr. DeLand, can you tell us a little about your experience, both personally and professionally, in seeing kids face serious health problems?
Yes. In fact, I am in a unique position because I have sort of been on both sides. I have been a parent because my daughter had serious allergies and still does, and asthma. When she was a baby, she was in the hospital once a month with pneumonia. And then my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 4, and then developed juvenile myoclonic epilepsy and has a couple other issues. But so for me, I've been on that side where the doctor says something to you and you don't want to hear it. So I think that's really helped me as a physician. What I usually do and what I pride myself in doing is engaging the child, getting the child comfortable, and of course talking to the parents. But the most important thing is to be able to get the trust of the child. The child is going to need to cooperate for all kinds of tests and everything, and so I think when the child feels a little empowered in some way, it does help.
Well, and you mentioned that your son was 4, I believe, when he was diagnosed. Was that with the diabetes or the epilepsy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How important was it, as a parent or in your opinion as a doctor, for him to really understand that diagnosis at that age? Is it more important that he just would have a rapport, or is it important that a kid as young as 3 or 4 kind of understands how much do they need to understand?
That's sort of a cutoff age there.
Okay.
Between 3 and 4, it depends. Like whenever I've had to sedate a child for treatment, typically I always had to sedate 3 and younger for radiation treatment. 4-year-olds sometimes, and part of that is understanding. So for my son, my experience was not good. For Andrew, I basically talked to him about any time he was eating, we had to take this shot because he didn't have a pump then. And gradually we got so he, pricked his finger and understood all that. But you sort of have to do it at the child's pace. And you can't do everything at once because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for the adult.
Molly, I know you had some experience as well. In fact, when your baby was in utero, when Riley was in utero. So can you tell us a little about what you've went through and are going through?
Yeah, at 20 weeks gestation, I found out that Riley had a heart condition. We were doing our 20-week checkup, and they were looking in depth at her heart and gave us the news that something was wrong with her heart, and they did it over the phone and told me to come in. So I found my husband. He was out with our 2-year-old and went in, and they said, your daughter has a congenital heart defect. Instead of having 4 chambers in her heart, she only has 2. And the blood, when she's born, the oxygenated and unoxygenated blood will mix. So she'll have to have open heart surgery by the time she's 6 months old. And along with that, she also has Down syndrome. So at 20 weeks gestation, they said you can, if you choose, you can terminate the pregnancy. And my husband and I said, absolutely not. It was the first thing. No, she's going to have heart surgery and she'll have Down syndrome, but she'll be fine. So at 20 weeks, we were able to get a lot of information. We still had, half the pregnancy to go. So we did lots of research, lots of online, internet looking. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't. Finding out that it's okay, what she has is not life-threatening as long as, she does go through with surgery well. But it was, and luckily we're in San Diego, and they have a great team of doctors at Children's Hospital that can do the surgery and have done it with, thousands of times. But that was one of the scariest things I've ever had to hear is, your baby has a heart condition. I mean, I've never been put under. I've never had surgery, and I know that my daughter's gonna have to have heart surgery at 6 months.
And this is your first?
This is our second.
Second,
we have a
that's right, you have a
2-year-old.
2-year-old.
We have a 2-year-old at home.
Right.
Yeah, it was, the day we found out, my husband and I were sitting in the car just crying, sobbing, and our daughter was, I think she was 18 months when we found out. So she's in the back of the car and she's telling us to calm down. Mommy, Daddy, calm down. Mama, Daddy, no. Yeah. And because for disciplining, we make her calm down.
Right.
So she was telling us to do that, and, because she
Which
knew
is so
something was
sweet.
wrong. Yeah. She understood something was wrong. She understood, something's wrong. And we kept telling her, baby's okay. She goes, baby, no, because she knew that something was wrong.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a scary news. It took weeks for us to get over, to be able to tell our families that something was wrong with the baby. It was just such like a,
so
hard.
you didn't share the news right
we didn't
away?
We shared it with my mom and my dad right away.
Right.
But everybody else, we just couldn't do it yet. To tell my parents took like an hour because we just cried the entire time we were trying to tell them.
Right.
Because, our baby has a heart problem. She's going to have
Has
heart
she had the surgery yet?
Not yet. She'll have it in September. She was in the NICU for 79 days because she was born preemie.
Okay.
And she, with her heart condition, she has a hard time eating. And kids with Down syndrome tend to have a hard time eating. And so she stopped eating off of a bottle, couldn't nurse, couldn't do anything. So she had to have surgery to put in a G-tube, which is a feeding tube that goes right into her belly. So she had to have that I think she was just over 2 months old when she had that surgery. And then right before her 3 months birthday, we came home from the NICU. So we've only been home for like 3 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So she's had lots of complications along the way. She's gone into heart failure already once. So she's on like 3 different heart meds that she, they call it a cocktail to keep her heart strong because she doesn't have enough. She's very weak. She has no energy. She cries very little. She's very quiet.
Well, in the past, and it is common for a Down syndrome child to have cardiac abnormality.
Right.
It used to be the main cause of a fatality in that child. So I think they've made great strides with cardiovascular surgery, and are able to do so much for these children now. So, I'm going to pray for you. My heart goes out to you because everybody wants and everyone expects their child's going to be healthy.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things, was getting the news and then realizing our child's not going to be that healthy child like our 2-year-old. She's not going to be able to run around, and she will eventually, but she's not going to be like our 2-year-old. It was a hard thing to accept.
Let's talk about that a little bit more after the break, about from the perspective of parents of other kids, dealing with the siblings and kind of how you're processing your emotions. And interesting, you said you were over it. Took you a few months to get over it, but I wonder what that really means. So let's talk about that a little bit more after the break. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're talking about when your family has to face a serious diagnosis with Dr. Maitland DeLand, who's on the phone with us. And Molly is in studio with us as well with her daughter, Riley, who has getting ready to have heart surgery. What's Riley, 3 months old, you said?
3 months,
3 months old. And Scott's here as well. So, for parents, you talked a lot, Molly, about how you were crying a lot. Mm-hmm. And, it's, even talking about it now just brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
Can do it. But what tips do you have now that this is your reality for the last few months, about how parents can, process their emotions, come to grips with what's going on, deal with it, make sure that their emotions aren't affecting either the siblings or, maybe you might have some ideas, and maybe Dr. Land does too, about the kids if they're old enough to understand the diagnosis?
Well, for me, the best thing was to learn about it, both diagnoses, the Down syndrome and the heart condition, because I knew nothing about either.
Right.
So for me, being a teacher, education was huge. I did lots of research, and then eventually talking about it was the biggest thing. Talking to everybody about, what she's going to have, and that helped me understand that, it's no big deal. She'll be fine. She's going to be okay. She's going to be a little different, but she'll be great. So for me, talking was huge.
And do you find that maybe talking to other people, you'd get feedback or inspiration from surprising places that you weren't expecting it?
We became a part of the Down Syndrome Association here in San Diego fairly quickly after finding out about this, and talked to many, many parents who've gone, who have kids with Down syndrome, and learning about the struggles they go through, but also the positive parts of having kids with Down syndrome, and realizing that this isn't a life, it's not a life-ending diagnosis. It's just it's a different path than what we had planned. And so for us, that was the biggest help for my husband and I to talk to other people who've gone through this. And then as far as our daughter, our 2-year-old Abigail, she just explaining to her that, Riley was sick. That's all we told her, is Riley is sick, so when she's born, she's going to need lots of help. Getting her to understand that, it's okay, she'll be fine. And the hardest part for Abigail was being in the hospital for 2.5 months, because one of us, my husband or I, was always in the hospital with Riley, and the other was at home. So we were split up as a family. So for her, understanding that, okay, Riley's sick, Riley needs help, Riley, needs doctors, needs the hospital, and mommy or daddy. So for her, talking to her a lot, explaining stuff to her. And
at some point, did it become part of her routine, though?
Yes.
And it became normal for her.
And then once we all came home again, she was looking around going like, why is everybody here? Like after 2.5 months, why is everybody sitting down at the table together?
Yeah.
Molly, Did you and your husband have a chance to talk before about like what if? I mean, I'm sure the phone call was kind of a surprise, or maybe but before that, I mean, I know that with Andrea and I, when she decided to have amnio, it was kind of like, well, okay, so the results could come, if it did come back, what are we going to do?
Right.
It's a hard conversation to have because you don't know, and you don't know when you're going to get the results. I mean, did you guys talk beforehand, or was it just kind of like a shock to the system, and now we have something that we have to really address and come together as a family to deal with?
We've been together for so long. We'd had the conversation over years that, if we ever had something wrong with our kids, we were going to have the babies no matter what. Unless it was something that was could severely harm me or cause me problems, we were going to have the baby. And so we knew that we were going to have the child no matter what. With our first one, it took us 1.5 years to get pregnant. So for us to even think about ending the pregnancy just because she's got a few problems, we just couldn't, I mean, my husband instantly, when the lady said, if you want to end it, he's like, no. And then we thought about doing the amnio. It can encourage us to do an amnio, and we didn't want to because it can increase your chances of having a miscarriage. I don't like needles, so I didn't want that needle near me. So we actually did a blood test. They can do a blood test now that tells, they can find the baby's DNA, and they were able to find out her gender, and then also for sure that she had the Down syndrome prior to having her. So we didn't have to do the amnio. But it was one of those things where we knew that something was wrong with her. We didn't want to do the amnio, and we were fine with it because it was, she was going to be born. We were going to, conquer whatever came towards us. But yeah, it was something we knew ahead of time that we weren't going to end it.
Dr. DeLand, what do you see with, when you're delivering news to parents and siblings and their reactions and how they deal with things?
I think one of the important things that I try to tell them is to not make that child that has the illness, not make his brother or sister feel like they have to babysit them, or because you don't want to feel like it's a burden for that child. And then sometimes they think you're spending too much time with this child and they feel left out. And so I try to bring it together that everybody helps. And because the last thing you want to do is make that child feel like their sibling is a burden. And so that's really important. And then I always just say, everybody has something. You're going to have to go, get shots. You're going to have this. But these are things to watch out for. Just like you would if he fell down. If you fell down, you come, you tell mommy. That sort of thing. But you never want it to make one child feel like they're responsible for the other child. And not to talk about really serious things right in front of them, because they hear more than you know. I think you kind of move things along you have the child that's ill, move things along at their pace so they understand what's going on. But then the child, the sibling also needs to understand too, but also needs to have a fun time and not feel like they're tied down.
That's what we've made a point to do with our 2-year-old
great.
is encourage her to have family time. So we, every once in a while we'd do something, the three of us. But like the other day, I took my 2-year-old out to just a play date with her and I. And then my husband gets to do that. So she doesn't feel like, we can't do anything because Riley's here. We don't want her to have animosity towards Riley because something's wrong with Riley. We don't want her to see Riley as, something bad. We want her to see her something fun.
Right. Or, you spend more time with Riley than me.
Right.
So so you are doing the right thing. And I've seen it not done that way. And so I know it just is very harmful for the child.
I want to talk a little more about like the impact on parenting. I mean, I imagine you and your husband were in a good spot before.
Right.
I mean, has it solidified your relationship, or have you had moments of, where it's been really hard?
I think what's made it really hard was not being together.
Because you're in different spots, right? And you lose the connection.
Like we would literally pass each other in the entryway to the hospital because our 2-year-old would sleep in the car, so we'd pass each other, give each other a kiss, say bye, and then talk on the phone. Like we celebrated our 8-year wedding anniversary, and we were on the phone. Yeah, because we couldn't see each other.
But so let's say that it tears a couple apart. And I mean, it's tragic to hear about like the parents divorcing, but I think that the real bad stuff is that they're arguing about it and bringing it into the room. Like there has to be some agreement that we got to pull it together for the kid.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's what we've tried to do with our 2-year-old, is not arguing in front of her, not having these conversations about Riley in front of her, just so that she understands that, Riley's a good thing. We just make a point to not be negative in front of her, because she's seen us fight over some things with Riley, and she just loses it. She hates it. Like, she can't stand seeing us cry anymore. Every time we start to cry, she always gets upset. And so we make a point to be as strong as possible in front of her. I mean, she does see emotions, but nothing severe. Extreme, yeah.
Well, Dr. DeLand, I know that in your Katie Kate books, you do talk about asthma and diabetes and epilepsy and cancer. I was wondering if you could maybe offer, maybe a tip, one of the tips that you have in the books, or some of the things that, it's good for parents or families to know about getting a diagnosis with each of those.
Well, I think one of the biggest tips I can give is to be honest. I think kids understand more than you think sometimes, and I think when you don't tell the truth, or people have different, I think everybody needs to be on the same page and say the same thing. I mean, I know I was with my son in Houston, and this little girl came out of the room, and she turned to her mother and she said, "I thought you said it was a test. You told me it was a test. I thought they were going to ask me, do I like sugar? Do I eat candy?" And it was a blood test.
Blood test.
And so I think you have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because you lose credibility, and then everyone needs to be on the same page, because that's very confusing when one person says one thing and somebody else says, like, yes, you can do that, no, you can't.
But then there's a line, too, though, between, I think, knowing how much truth they need.
Absolutely, and that depends exactly on the child.
Would you say that, generally speaking, that kids end up facing it with more confidence and aplomb than adults do?
Yes, I think so. I think parents go through a period of time where, I've had them be very angry and say, how could God do this to my child? I have an innocent child. How could this happen? And that's such a difficult question to answer, but I always tell people that, I tell them we weren't here when God created heaven and earth, and we don't know what his path is for each of us, but we have to put our trust in that. And because it's a very difficult thing when you have an innocent child that's subject to an illness. It's just a very, very difficult thing. And then children, I think that one of the most saddest things that I ever heard was I had this little girl, and she'd had like a couple recurrences. And she was talking to me one day, and she knew she was going to die. And she was about 11. And she said, "Dr. Maitland," she goes, "I don't mind if I'm going to die. That's okay. I just don't want to be cold." So I talked to her, and I told her that she wouldn't be cold at all. I couldn't believe she said that day. I think she must have heard something at home about death or something like that, or somebody must have said, like, this is your third recurrence, and she must have heard she was going to die. It's
sad to think about, but in a way it's comforting to know that kids can be so resilient and accepting, and that we can probably learn a little bit from them.
We always can.
All right. Well, baby Riley, thanks for sticking with us for all that time. And thank you, Dr. DeLand.
You're welcome.
Hopefully our listeners found this useful. Well, actually, as part of our bonus segment, Dr. DeLand will tell us a little bit more about her books, The Great Katie Kate. So stick around for that if you're a Parent Savers Club members. For more information on today's show, about information about any of our panelists, please visit the episode page on parentsavers.com. We're going to do a quick break, and then we'll wrap up the show. Before we wrap things up, here's psychologist Jennifer Shear with some tips on surviving the emotional side of parenting.
Hi, Parent Savers. I'm Dr. Jennifer Shear, a clinical psychologist with a practice in San Diego. A large focus of my work is on helping women during pregnancy and throughout the transition to motherhood. Today's topic is strategies for redefining boundaries with your own mom and other family members once you have a baby. An important thing to consider when becoming a new mother is what you want from your own mom, and then doing the big girl job of communicating that. Some women want their mother's support during delivery or right after bringing baby home. Other women want the birth experience to be shared with spouses only and feel strongly about having private bonding time. It is helpful to think through your needs and to communicate this ahead of time to family members. This allows time for feelings to get sorted out and expectations to become clear to everyone. Many of us have mothers and relatives that are all too eager to jump in and voice their opinions. However, when we are vulnerable and unsure of ourselves, we often want reassurance and validation. It is normal to feel sensitive or criticized by others' instructions on how something should be done. New grandmas are adjusting too. They may become over-involved through a desire to feel close and maintain purpose in the new family constellation. Everyone is going through loss at the very time that everyone is gaining. As a new mom, it can be helpful to think of yourself as CEO of your family. Use your relational intelligence to put the right personalities in the right roles. If mom or aunt is good at doing, let her stock the fridge and manage the baby supply list. Perhaps she can do research on baby nutrition or pediatricians. Put your people to work in ways that they can feel meaningful too. But know that you make the final decisions and allow your intuition to guide you. It is part of forging your own path and defining your maternal authority. Thanks for listening to today's segment, and keep listening for more episodes on how to thrive as a new parent.
That wraps things up for today. Thanks so much for listening to Parent Savers. Thank you so much, baby Riley. She's adorable, and hopefully you guys don't mind the noises, because we sure don't. We appreciate you guys all listening to Parent Savers. Don't forget to check out our sister shows, Preggy Pals for expecting parents, and our show, The Boob Group, for moms who breastfeed their babies. Next week, we're going to be talking with Dr. Scott Koenig about dealing with power struggles. This is Parent Savers, empowering new parents.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
Hey, mamas. Don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording, so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.